I was their failed first attempt at parenting, when mom and dad sat me down to ask if I wanted a little brother, clutching my only toy car. I shook my head earnestly. I don't want a little brother, and I don't want a little sister either, but they completely ignored my opinion. With cheerful smiles, they left me with my grandparents, only returning a year later with a chubby-cheeked baby boy. She said he would be my future playmate, and also the brother I never had. But before I even reached adulthood, my younger brother was diagnosed with leukemia. I was forced onto the operating table, time and again, as thick, cold steel needles pierced deep into my bone marrow. When my brother's kidneys failed, my mother, as my legal guardian, signed a voluntary kidney donation agreement on my behalf. I was on my knees, pleading that I had a blood clotting disorder, but my parents were convinced I was lying. They called me heartless and forced the nurse to administer the anesthetic. In the end, I bled out completely and died on the cold operating table. When I opened my eyes again, my mother was crouched in front of me, her face glowing with maternal love. "Sweetheart Silas, Mommy has a little brother in her tummy. Would you like a little brother to play with?" Mom was holding two Ultraman action figures, while a brand new blue crib stood nearby, looking down at the lone toy car in my hand. I realized I had traveled back in time. This time, I refused to be my brother's organ donor or be trapped by my parents' hollow affection. Dad said with eager anticipation, "Sweetheart, Mommy has a little brother in her belly. You won't have to sleep alone anymore once he's here." My father in a past life used to say the same thing, but after my little brother was born, I felt more alone than ever. Mom stopped reading me bedtime stories. Dad no longer sat me on his lap. Overnight, I became invisible in my own home. I was expected to be mature, to look after my brother, to shoulder the responsibilities of an older sibling. I was only 5 years old when they said those words. They expected a 5-year-old to cast aside all jealousy and resentment, and devote herself wholeheartedly to serving a little ball of flesh that hadn't even been born yet. Back then, I had a vague sense that I was about to lose something, fearfully. I told Mom and Dad that I wanted to always be their one and only precious child, but Mom suddenly flew into a rage, pointed at me and scolded, "I always knew you were jealous. You can't even stand your own baby brother." I didn't understand what she meant. I only knew Mom was angry, so I tearfully admitted I was wrong, and said I wished I had a little brother to play with. Mom finally smiled, but whispered to Dad, "I saw online about an 8-year-old boy who pushed his pregnant mother down the stairs. Who knows if our kid might get jealous and try something. I think we should send him back to our hometown until after I give birth to Jasper." Even before my brother was born, my parents named him Jasper, symbolizing that he would inherit everything in the family. Memories kept surfacing in my mind, and my eyes unconsciously darkened. Thinking I didn't understand, Mom took my hand and placed it on her belly. "There's a little life growing in Mommy's tummy now. It could be a baby brother or a baby sister. Are you excited?" Dad came over and joked, "One son is plenty for me. I'm hoping for a daughter this time, so our precious Silas will have someone to play with." My father said the same thing in my past life. Back then, I actually believed a little brother would play with me, so I excitedly said I was looking forward to having one. But after he was born, my brother detested me. He'd throw toys at me and deliberately break my only toy. When I complained to my parents, they'd just say, "Wasn't it you who wanted a little brother to play with? He's still young and doesn't know any better. You need to be more understanding." My parents used that same excuse to dismiss me throughout my childhood and teenage years, and just as I was about to come of age, they used it again to take my life away. So this time, I pointed expressionlessly at the room full of baby supplies. "You've already decided to have it, haven't you? Why even ask me?" For a moment, both my parents were at a loss for words, visibly uncomfortable. Without another word, I turned around and headed upstairs, clutching my worn-out toy car. Upstairs, there's always been a spacious, bright room kept empty. Mom and Dad said it was for guests. Only now did it dawn on me. It was reserved for my unborn brother. Back in my own cramped room, the tears finally started flowing uncontrollably. All these years I've been swallowing my pride, enduring the pain through countless surgeries, yet they still act like it's nothing more than my duty. Whenever I was in pain and needed comfort, hoping my mother would console me, she would only scold me for being inconsiderate, and even lash out harshly. "If it weren't for you saying you wanted a little brother, why would I have had a second child? Now that he's here, how can you just ignore him?" I clenched my fists tightly, determined to escape this living hell. After reflecting for a long time, I finally came to the painful realization that my parents didn't love me. I never received much affection from the day I was born. My mother always taught me to be sensible, frugal, and obedient, expecting me never to act out and to always look after the family. That's why I never dared to show my own needs. Except for that one time at age 3 when I cried for a toy car, my mother slapped me right there on the street. Left me in front of the vendor's stall, and I cried there all morning. Only then did my father buy me the toy car, saying to me with deep sincerity, "Mom had to give up her job to take care of you, and Dad is working so hard to support our family all by himself. The price of this toy car could already buy us a whole pound of braised pork belly. Please don't blame Mom. She just wants you to be more understanding." At 3 years old, I didn't understand anything, hearing those words. I thought our family was so poor we couldn't even put food on the table. I cried and apologized to my mom, promising I would never ask for any toys again. But back then, Mom's dresses cost over 1,000 yuan each, and the cigarettes Dad smoked every day were the premium, Heaven and Earth, brand. After my little brother was born, he got new toys every single month. Our family was never going to go broke just because I wanted a toy car that cost $12. They just couldn't bring themselves to spend money on me, nor could they bring themselves to give me love. Sure enough, early the next morning, my mom knocked on my door. She pretended to be unwell. "Silas, Mommy has a little brother in her belly now and can't take care of you. Could you go stay at Grandma's for a few days?" I stared at her coldly. Just a few days, really? My blunt gaze left my mother speechless for a moment. But she pressed on, "Of course, I'll bring you home as soon as I'm feeling better." At that, I didn't spare her another glance. I simply turned around, picked up my small backpack, and stuffed inside my meager belongings, the few clothes I had and my one and only toy car. "Let's go." It was Mom who told me to leave, but as I got in the car, her eyes welled up with tears. "Let your dad drive you," she said. "It would be too hard for me to watch you go." Anyone watching would have thought she doted on me, but the truth was, she just felt guilty. After all, what was supposed to be a few days' trip had actually stretched to at least a year. The car journeyed from the main road onto a remote mountain path, until the familiar, dilapidated village finally came into view. Dad said with a steady expression, "Behave at your grandparents' house, help out with whatever you can, don't be willful, and call me if anything comes up." Holding a smartwatch in my hand, I stared at it for a long moment before asking, "Will Daddy really answer the phone?" Dad was puzzled. "Of course. How could I not answer my sweet Silas's call? Don't worry, even with a new baby brother, you'll always be Daddy's favorite. Be good at Grandma and Grandpa's house. I'll come get you in a few days." Liar. In my past life, I was sent to live with my grandparents. My uncle's youngest son bullied me, calling me an unwanted orphan. I called my father in tears, but he just said he was at work and hung up abruptly. During the first month, I called him 5 times because I was struggling to adjust, but he only answered twice, and each call lasted mere seconds. From the second month onward, he forgot to top up my phone watch, leaving me unable to make any calls. Back then, I thought I had broken the smartwatch myself. Consumed by guilt, I hid in a corner crying, desperately hoping my parents would come bring me home soon. After a year and a half of longing, my father finally had an uncle who was going to the city bring me back home. The moment I stepped inside, my mother covered her nose in disgust. "Silas, why do you reek of duck droppings? Didn't you ever bathe out in the countryside?" At 6 years old, I was utterly mortified and hung my head in shame, compared to my fair-skinned, chubby younger brother. I was scrawny and small after over a year of toiling under the sun in the countryside, a sallow little monkey that was hardly endearing. But wasn't it her idea to send me off to the countryside in the first place? On my very first day at my grandparents' house, my aunt made her displeasure abundantly clear. They can't even take care of their own parents, and now they're dumping this brat on us too. My uncle gave me a silent look before turning back into the house. I quietly took my backpack and crouched under my grandparents' eaves, drawing and writing by myself. They didn't like me, but my dad sent living expenses every month, so they wouldn't let me go hungry or freeze. I won't beg my parents for mercy through tears like I did in my past life. I'll take good care of myself and strive to gain the ability to stand on my own 2 feet as soon as possible. It wasn't until sunset that my grandparents finally returned home from working in the fields. Since they didn't recognize me, I took the initiative to approach them. "Grandma, Grandpa, I'm Silas. I've come to keep you company." Grandma immediately gathered me into her loving embrace, while Grandpa grinned from ear to ear and invited me inside for cookies. At night, I fell asleep lying on the cooling mat as Grandma fanned me, and Grandpa would glance my way occasionally, letting out heavy sighs. Tears slid from the corners of my eyes as I vowed to repay my grandparents this time and never let them die tragically again. Just like in my previous life, it took over a year for Mom and Dad to bring me home this time as well. To my surprise, they came to pick me up in person this time. My chubby baby brother was lying in Mom's arms as she focused on nursing him, only casually asking if I'd been obedient to my grandparents. My aunt and uncle were all smiles when they saw the gifts Dad brought, praising me non-stop for being sensible and diligent. They even mentioned how I could recognize many characters despite not starting school yet. Hearing this, Mom immediately beamed and said, "She takes after me. I was the class monitor back in my school days." Dad was also delighted. He bent down and playfully poked my baby brother, who was drinking milk, saying, "Your older brother is amazing, and you're sure to be just as great." They were planning to take me back to the city for school, but I refused to go, saying, "I want to stay here with Grandma and Grandpa." Grandma was taken aback. Though her heart ached at the thought of parting, she said, "Go back with your parents. The schools in the city are much better. You'll start school next year. We mustn't let you fall behind." Grandpa chimed in, "The teachers here in the village wrap your knuckles, but the city teachers give out candy, with surprising strength." Grandma bundled me into Dad's car. "Come see us during the holidays." "Silly child, don't be so stubborn." As the car started moving, Mom's cheerful smile vanished in an instant. "Did you run wild out in the countryside? Don't even want to come home anymore? At your age, you should be focusing on your studies, not climbing trees and catching shrimp all day. Can't you show some ambition, boy?" I instinctively wanted to defend myself, but I knew it was pointless. She had already made up her mind about me. Seeing my silence, Mom grew even more smug, speechless. "Ha! I knew I was right." Dad pretended to be the peacemaker. All right, it's her first day back. Let's not make her upset." Mom snorted and started teasing my younger brother with a toy car, dropping our conversation. When we got home, a car-shaped cake sat on the table alongside various baby-friendly foods. As soon as we sat down, Mom immediately said, "Your father and I bought this special cake to welcome you home. Your little brother didn't even get one." I scoffed inwardly. "The only reason he didn't get any was because he's too young for cake, and you claim this cake was bought for me. Then why is it decorated with the car pattern my little brother loves?" Just as I was about to blow out the lit candles, Mom quickly stopped me. "Let your brother blow them out since he can't eat the cake. You can have the whole thing to yourself later." I sat frozen in place, watching her coax my 1-year-old brother to blow out the candles. The little baby had no idea how to blow out the candles, just huffing and puffing a bunch of drool all over the cake, and ended up excitedly smashing it to bits with his tiny fists. Mom shot me a quick glance, saw I wasn't upset, then turned back with a smile and praised him. "My little boy is so strong. What a good job, sweetie." I just watched quietly, thinking to myself, "No kidding, he's strong. The kid can barely walk steady but managed to shoot a toy gun and blind someone's pet dog worth over 100 grand. This is the Hercules of our time." After returning home, I studied diligently every day. Mom would occasionally make sarcastic remarks. "What's the point of burying yourself in books? You'd be better off helping me wash some dishes or playing with your little brother." I completely ignored her comments, focusing solely on my studies and actively participating in various competitions. During winter and summer breaks, I would voluntarily go to the countryside to spend time with my grandparents. Over time, my mother realized we weren't close and grew even more distant, even deliberately ignoring me. If this had happened in my past life during my teenage years, I probably would have fallen into depression and lived in constant anxiety. But now, it didn't affect me at all. Until 6th grade, my brother burst into the house in a panic and hid in his room, too scared to come out for dinner. Mom knocked anxiously on the door. "Jasper, what's wrong? Did something happen while you were out playing?" My brother didn't dare to speak. I glanced at the calendar and realized he was terrified because he had just blinded someone's beloved dog while playing outside. The dog owner is frantically trying to find the culprit. At this time in my previous life, I wasn't home. I wasn't forced to kneel before the pet owner until I returned home on the weekend. All because my mother lied and said I was the one who shot the dog in the eye with a toy gun. My mother slapped me several times. And then the pet owner forced me to kneel and apologize to the dog. Some peers who knew me witnessed this scene. I became known as that despicable dog abuser, and everyone ostracized me. A few radical dog lovers cornered me in the restroom, beat me up, and even forced me to drink toilet water. So this time, I swaggered all the way home. I deliberately lingered in front of the security camera for a long time, never stepping outside. Anyone checking the footage would see I never left the house. Mom couldn't falsely accuse me even if she tried, but I underestimated how biased Mom could be. Worried my brother might skip his meal, she picked the lock and went straight in. Seeing him burst into tears immediately threw me into a panic. After some persistent questioning, I found out he'd been bragging to his friend about spotting a wild boar, only to realize after firing the shot that it was someone's dog. The dog's owner was notoriously difficult to deal with. Even my mother furrowed her brow and said, "This is CEO Nathan's wife's dog. Your father works under him." My younger brother wailed, "What are we going to do?" Just as my little brother started crying, the door suddenly got pounded on. "Get out here. Your kid blinded my dog. Where are the parents? Get out here now. Don't play dumb. I've got the toy gun right here." This imported toy gun, yours is the only family in all of Jinghai that bought one. Don't even try to deny it. I sat in my room reading, quietly listening to the commotion outside. The younger brother's crying stopped the instant the dog owner knocked on the door. I sneered, "Hiding already? That was quick." Just as I was about to go out and watch the drama unfold, my mom suddenly opened the door, her face filled with panic. "It was my older son who accidentally hit your dog, but he's just a child. Please don't take it out on him." The lady with blood still on her hands charged forward and slapped me across the face. "Was it you who shot my dog with this gun?" I looked at my mother in disbelief. She guiltily averted her eyes, then moments later turned back to me with a pleading gaze. The woman's face was contorted with rage. "My hands are covered in blood. Do you have any idea what it felt like rushing my dog to the hospital, just because your child is young? Does that mean my dog deserved this?" She began clawing at me wildly, as if she wanted to tear me apart right then and there. My mother stood frozen in shock, and only after I'd been slapped several times did she tremulously say, "I'll cover your medical expenses. Please just let my son go." Neighbors began gathering outside, craning their necks curiously to see what was happening. My mother's eyes darted, then she rushed over, pressed down on my back, and kicked me behind the knee. "Hurry up and apologize to Madame Genevieve. Do you have any idea how much it's going to cost your father and me because you hurt her dog?" She leaned in and whispered in my ear, "Your brother's background check for school admission isn't over yet. If he gets rejected from that elite academy because of this, you'll pay for it." The onlookers started pointing fingers at me. "That's Madame Genevieve's blue base shepherd. Just a puppy costs over 100,000. And raising it has set her back millions. This kid is in deep trouble. Tisk, tisk, having a son like that. What a curse from a past life. This Silas has always loved hanging around the countryside. Who knows, he might have picked up the rural habit of eating dog meat." I tried to struggle, but what chance did a 12-year-old have against two grown adults holding me down? My mother forced my head down. Her hand clamped over my mouth as I was made to kowtow. Madame Genevieve's anger subsided as blood started trickling from my forehead from the forced bowing. I bit my mother's hand and shouted, "It wasn't me. I didn't do it." Madame Genevieve flew into a rage instantly, denying it. "The whole neighborhood is covered in surveillance cameras. Do I have to shove the evidence in your face? One word from me, and your whole family will be run out of Jinghai. Believe it." I opened my mouth to suggest she check the cameras, but mother slapped me across the face again. "You make a mistake and still talk back. Is this what your father and I taught you?" She covered my mouth again and turned to Madame Genevieve with a pleading look. "There's no need to check the surveillance footage. We admit it." Her hands trembled as she insisted, "It's all my Silas's fault for not watching where he was going and hurting your dog. I'll cover the vet bills right away and take care of any follow-up expenses. I just beg you to let him go." She spoke through tears, and the onlookers were deeply moved. This mother is spending money and humiliating herself just to clean up her son's mess. What immense maternal love. A woman may be delicate, but motherhood makes her strong. Madame Genevieve, let's be merciful where we can. As everyone around tried to persuade her, Madame Genevieve, seeing the mother's sincerity, snorted and decided to let it go. I was so filled with hatred that I felt tears of blood were about to stream from my eyes. Motherly love. She did have motherly love, but it wasn't meant for me. It was all to protect Jasper, who was hiding in the next room. Even now, she's desperately covering my mouth, terrified I'll reveal that her precious little boy was the one who did it. I stared daggers at her, my heart seething with hatred and resentment. From this day forward, I will never call her mother again. Fresh off work, Dad saw a crowd gathered before even stepping through the door. Puzzled, he walked in and immediately turned obsequious the moment he spotted Madame Genevieve. Madame Genevieve, what brings you to my home? Is there something CEO Nathan needs? Madame Genevieve shot him a cold glance and ignored him. Mom said awkwardly. Silas blinded Madame Genevieve's beloved dog in both eyes. I'm begging Madame Genevieve to spare him. Upon hearing this, Dad's eyes widened as he hissed through gritted teeth. He did something like this and you're still pleading for him. Don't you know I'm up for a promotion right now? You fool. Hand Silas over to Madame Genevieve immediately. There's nothing to plead for. Mom felt wronged by the scolding but couldn't reveal in front of Madame Genevieve that the real culprit was Jasper. I refused to back down. Dad pulled Mom aside and snapped. Spare the rod and spoil the child. He never listens to you anyway. Why are you defending him? The moment I broke free, I bolted to the living room, grabbed a chair, and started savagely smashing it against Jasper's door. Mom realized what I was about to do and rushed over to stop me, but I was seeing red. I swung the chair straight at her. Afraid of getting hurt, she quickly dodged away. Just at that moment, I smashed open Jasper's door. Dad snapped. Have you lost your mind? But I stood my ground, hurling a chair at him. Stay back. Madame Genevieve was completely dumbfounded, thinking I had suddenly lost my mind, but then she caught sight of Jasper's open room, which was filled with toy guns of all sizes, and even the bullet that had wounded her beloved dog. At this point, everything became crystal clear to her, but Father was still in the dark. Seeing Jasper huddled in the corner, his heart ached so much that his eyes turned red. Silas, stop it right now. You're scaring your brother. My mother quickly made an excuse. All the toys in our house are kept in this room. Silas's room is too small and filled with books. There's simply no space for them. I was trembling with rage. After all this, you're still lying. I never even left the house. I'm not the one who hurt the dog. Madame Genevieve's gaze fell on me several times before she finally declared, since your son refuses to admit it, tie him up and make him kneel by the dog's sickbed. He won't be allowed back until the dog recovers. She could tell our parents would protect Jasper at all costs. Even if she pushed the issue, the law wouldn't touch him, so to vent her anger, she decided to take it out on me instead. Mom's eyes lit up with delight. I'll go drag that wretched boy over here right now. To secure Jasper's smooth enrollment, she simply threw me under the bus. Dad was no fool either. He instantly caught Mom's meaning and immediately unbuckled his belt. You little brat, if you don't behave, I'll personally drag you over to kneel and apologize. The belt, thick as a forearm, was about to strike me. I saw Madame Genevieve curl her lips in smug satisfaction, looking at me as if I were an insect, pinned to the ground by my mother. I struggled with all my might but couldn't break free. A profound sense of helplessness brought tears to my eyes. Am I really destined to follow this path and become Jasper's scapegoat? Stop right there. A deep, commanding male voice rang out, making everyone turn their heads. Madame Genevieve widened her eyes in astonishment. What brings you here? He paid no attention to Madame Genevieve, instead striding forward and pushing my mother off me. I saw several middle-aged men in administrative jackets following behind, along with journalists holding cameras, taking in my swollen, bruised face and pitiful disheveled state. His eyes welled up with involuntary tears. What did this child do to deserve such a beating? He tried to help me up, but my legs kept buckling every time I tried to stand. It was only when I looked down that I realized, during the struggle just now, my left leg was actually crushed by my mother. It was twisted into a horrifying shape. My mother covered her mouth, shaking her head frantically. Chief, it wasn't me. I just lost focus for a moment. Madame Genevieve immediately chimed in. I didn't lay a finger on anyone. I have no idea what happened. This has nothing to do with me. The bureau chief shook his head slowly. This child is a national champion, the only prodigy to come out of our Jinghai city. This is the kind of talent the country needs. Even if the child made a mistake, how could you be so heartless? Not only did you beat someone to this state, but you even broke their leg. Are you even human? The bureau chief immediately called for an ambulance, but I suddenly raised my hand. Wait. Everyone turned to look at me. I spat out the blood in my mouth and pointed at the two people across from me. Uncle Chief, I want to cut ties with them. They knew perfectly well it was my brother who hurt Madame Genevieve's dog, yet they still forced me to take the blame. I don't want parents like this. As soon as these words were spoken, the room erupted with the sound of camera shutters clicking. A reporter leaned in close to me and asked, "Young man, are you saying your parents deliberately harmed you to protect your brother?" My mother anxiously cut in, "No, that's not true. This child has always been a liar. Please, nobody believe a word he says." The director shot a sharp glare, and Mom immediately shut her mouth, though she still looked pleadingly at Dad. Dad cleared his throat a few times, crouched down not far away, and stretched out his hands toward me with affection. "Silly child. How could Mom and Dad not love you? Your little brother is innocent. You've always been a bit mischievous and distant from us. This time, we were just too worried and ended up hurting you. It's our fault. Will you forgive us?" If I were really a 12-year-old child, I probably wouldn't have been able to detect the manipulative undertones in those words, but I've already died once. I won't make the same mistake again. My brother shot someone's dog with a gun, got scared, and ran home when Mrs. Genevieve came looking for him. My mother knew full well I hadn't left the house, yet she still pushed me out to take the blame, covered my mouth so I couldn't defend myself, and you know perfectly well I only have a toy car. I never touch his toy guns. Every word I'm saying is true. If you don't believe me, just check the security footage. The quick-witted reporter immediately contacted the residential security to check the surveillance footage. The bureau chief values talent. I knew he wouldn't just stand by and do nothing. With a thud, he dropped to his knees despite his broken leg. "Mom and Dad don't need me at all, and they don't love me either. I'd rather go to an orphanage than stay in this house any longer. Please, Uncle, help me." I was just forced to kowtow, but this time it's truly from the heart. I'm only 12 now. In 3 years, my brother will be diagnosed with leukemia. If I don't escape, my mother will use her guardianship rights to force me onto the operating table again and again, until I die. I absolutely cannot let history repeat itself. The wound on his forehead, which had just begun to clot, started bleeding again, and everyone present was visibly moved. They were all wondering what could drive a 12-year-old to prefer an orphanage over staying with his own parents. Some sharp-eyed individuals had already started glancing toward my shabby room. Aside from a worn-out bed and a desk, the room was filled with my younger brother's basketballs, various toy guns, and an assortment of mops and other clutter. The living room is filled with my younger brother's toys, with no trace of my existence to be found. They began whispering among themselves. I heard this couple sends their eldest son to the countryside every school break. The older boy wears nothing but hand-me-downs, while the younger one is dressed head to toe in designer clothes. They're clearly playing favorites. My mother quickly defended herself. "I've never shown favoritism. I treat both my sons equally. Don't you dare spread such lies." But the public sees things clearly. You can tell how much parents truly love their children by whether they've created a comfortable living environment for them. In this 100-square-meter apartment, even my cramped room was nearly overflowing with clutter. The director was visibly moved, especially after hearing from the neighbors. He helped me up with concern, saying, "Let's get you to the hospital first, child. I'll report this to my superiors." A woman in uniform called out, "I'm a lawyer. I'll help you sue." Madame Genevieve gasped, "Aren't you the chief partner of Guji law firm?" I lowered my head with a faint smile. I knew exactly who this lawyer was. She had handled thousands, if not tens of thousands of cases, with an almost flawless record. In my past life, I had intended to hire her for a parental rights termination case, but my parents conspired and killed me before I could reach out to her. She also has an adorable son, so she definitely wouldn't stand by and do nothing. Everything I just did was to force these people out into the open. Because I'm doing everything in my power to save myself, I lay on the stretcher, surrounded by people who cared about me. My parents were swarmed by reporters, all asking how they felt about the situation. The director shielded me from the press and said calmly, "I came today to take this child to the capital to receive an award. I never expected to encounter such a scene, but it's fortunate we did. Otherwise, I can't imagine what might have happened to this child." Before coming, the director must have investigated every detail of my life and background. That's why he trusted me immediately. People can lie with their words, but the traces of life they've left behind cannot be altered. This case has attracted widespread attention, not only because a 12-year-old elementary school student resolutely decided to sever ties with their parents, but also because I am the national competition champion and the person the bureau chief personally escorted to the hospital. The whole nation is waiting for the verdict, and everyone knows about their wicked deeds. Madame Genevieve was accused of throwing her weight around, and even her husband's company lost numerous contracts and is on the verge of bankruptcy. Father was fired immediately, and mother didn't dare go out to buy groceries because whenever someone saw her, they would point fingers and call her biased and deranged. Yet none of this has brought them to their senses. They must have seen some benefit in me, because they actually reached out to my grandparents and had them call me. Hearing my grandfather's aged voice on the phone brought tears to my eyes. In my past life, I died on the operating table. In their rush to see me one last time, my frantic grandparents were hit by an out-of-control truck and completely crushed. Not even their bones remained. So this time, I made sure to tell them in advance not to go anywhere and to wait for me to visit them during my vacation. But this time, they still said, "Silas, your grandparents miss you. How are you holding up?" I overheard Dad urgently urging Grandpa to call me home right away, but Grandma just snorted coldly, snatched the phone, and said, "Even if you aren't Mom and Dad's child, your grandparents will always love you." With a sharp click, Grandma hung up the phone abruptly. She cast aside all her doubts for me. How could I possibly let her down? Time and again, I stood in the courtroom, steadfastly voicing my demands. Over the years, I've gathered ample evidence proving they brought me into this world but failed to raise me. With overwhelming public support and irrefutable evidence, the court terminated their parental rights over me. This was a historic battle, and more importantly, the greatest turning point of my life. From that moment on, I was finally completely free of them. The director said I would now be a child of the state. The country would spare no effort in nurturing me. I nodded firmly, pledging to work even harder as I represent our nation in competition with prodigies from around the world. The years slipped by, one after another. At my request, my grandparents were accommodated in the accompanying family residence. Outside of study hours, I spent all my time with them. This was exactly the life I had always dreamed of. Until my 9th grade year, Jasper was diagnosed with leukemia. Grandpa stood under the corridor, his hands trembling. Lost in a daze for what felt like an eternity, I leaned in and caught a glimpse of that message. "Jasper has been diagnosed with leukemia. Dad, could you please ask Silas to come back and donate bone marrow?" Grandfather didn't respond, and then my biological father sent another message. "Donating bone marrow isn't a big deal. He's Jasper's own brother, and you're Jasper's own grandfather. How can you just stand by and watch him die?" Grandfather turned his head, and I saw his eyes welling up with tears. "I'm his grandson, and so is Jasper." Knowing he couldn't choose between us, I volunteered. "I'll donate the bone marrow, but only the bone marrow." From that moment on, I considered my debt of life to them fully repaid. But Grandpa took my hand, shaking his head firmly. "I know they've hurt you, and I don't want you doing anything against your will. Anyone can donate bone marrow. It doesn't have to be you." Grandma emerged from nearby and said, "You're absolutely right. You're not the only possible bone marrow donor. Don't let your grandparents influence your decision, because you're also the one and only precious treasure in this world. There's no need to compromise yourself for others." The three of us embraced each other with tears in our eyes, crying so hard we could barely catch our breath. Finally, I posted a plea on my anonymous social media account with tens of thousands of followers, sharing that Jasper had been diagnosed with leukemia and needed a bone marrow donor. I also included all the money the couple had ever spent on me. I offered the entire amount, 23,586 yuan and 50 cents, as a reward for the bone marrow donation. Soon enough, someone reached out and volunteered to be a donor match. I looked up at the sky, feeling completely disconnected from them. After Jasper recovered, he didn't see it as a blessing from above. Instead, he smugly asked our grandfather for my number. "You didn't want to donate your bone marrow to save me, but there are still good people out there. Bet you didn't see that coming. You've always been jealous since we were kids that Mom and Dad favored me. What's the point of studying so hard? They still treat you like dirt." He sneered triumphantly. "Even though you're some hotshot celebrity now, Mom and Dad don't regret a thing. If anything, they despise you even more. Did you do all this just to make us regret how we treated you? Well, guess what? We're completely unaffected by your little act." I listened quietly and waited until he ran out of steam before saying, "Seems like you're the one who's actually bothered by all this." He flew into a rage and tried to argue back, but I hung up before he could get another word out. He thought those words would get under my skin, not realizing I'd long given up on this family and had no expectations left. Naturally, they couldn't affect my mood. Perhaps it was his brush with death that turned Jasper into a hedonist. He started squandering his parents' money on gambling, and when caught, he dropped to his knees claiming that having faced death once, he just wanted to live in the moment. His words brought his doting parents to tears, leaving them no choice but to let him have his way. To everyone's shock, Jasper had the audacity to get involved with drugs. In less than 2 weeks, he was assaulting them for money, but with the family's savings long depleted, how could they possibly come up with the cash? When the police showed up to arrest him, Jasper suddenly coughed up a mouthful of blood. Not only was his leukemia found to have relapsed, but he was also diagnosed with AIDS and kidney failure. They still called me in tears, trapped in a hopeless situation. Silas, we were wrong before. Could you send some money? Your brother is dying. He can't afford to stay in the hospital much longer. Please save him. We admit we were at fault before. Could you come see him? I glanced at the calendar showing I'd turn 18 in 10 days and replied coldly, no, they're just trying to take advantage of my minor status to lure me out. But this time, I've not only cut ties with them but also gained multi-layered protection from government agents. There's no way they can harm me now. And my grandparents will live peacefully with me from now on. 3 months later, Jasper succumbed to renal failure. The two who kept clamoring to save their son, 2 months ago, they gave up on treatment just 1 month after Jasper's relapse. Because the newly ill Jasper was more volatile than ever, he would lash out at his 2 caregivers at the slightest provocation, even attempting to cut his own hands in a deranged effort to infect them with HIV, all while screaming, "Why should I be the only one to die? You brought me into this world, so you're responsible for me. If I die, you're coming with me." Terrified, they fled Jinghai overnight and tried every possible means to track me down, but with layers of police protection, there was no way they could get near me. To stake me out, they scavenged through trash daily just to catch a glimpse of me, but I always travel in government vehicles through secured routes, never once crossing paths with them. The only place they ever see me is on roadside billboards. I stand glamorously before the cameras, with my grandparents always impeccably dressed by my side, frequenting only upscale venues. Everyone praises them for raising such a successful child, and I just smile indifferently as I block the new harassing messages flooding my phone. We're so sorry. We know we were wrong. It was our fault. Please give us another chance. We promise we'll treat you right this time. Belated affection is cheaper than weeds, and that holds true for family bonds too. Their son had already died on the operating table in a past life. The person I am now belongs to no one but myself. And, story 2, at the end of the world, I finally rescued my boyfriend, but he broke my legs. He twisted my wound and interrogated me about the whereabouts of the system. When I refused to tell him, my best friend slashed my skin and kept abusing me. My younger brother, whom I raised with my own hands, cut open my body while I was still alive and searched carefully. After being reborn, I returned to the beginning of the apocalypse. My best friend, covered in blood, cried and begged me to save her. I kicked her away and said, "Get lost, you're such a bad omen. Traitors and burdens can all go to hell. This time, I'll be beautiful on my own." I don't know how long I had been tied to the iron frame. My legs had already started to rot and stink, after being broken by my boyfriend Xander. They set them for me and then broke them again. I passed out from the pain, and they would splash me awake with cold water. Now, there were even white maggots growing on them. I was hanging in midair, on the verge of death. My best friend Amelia held a knife against my chest. She slowly cut open my skin with the knife, one cut after another. "Riley, tell me where the thing is, and I'll give you a quick death." My system had a physical form. It was a small golden cube that could only be used when carried with me. Normally, I would wear it around my neck, and they had all seen it, but after I was ambushed and knocked out by Xander, they didn't find the cube on me, so they kept torturing me. I opened my eyes with difficulty, and my lips twitched. Amelia leaned in expectantly. "Hurry up and say it." I grinned and spat a mouthful of blood in her face. "I won't give it to you even if I destroy it." Amelia went crazy and started slapping me continuously. I could hardly feel the pain now, and my vision was gradually blurring. When she got tired of hitting me, she started scolding me. "Why do you deserve it? I'm clearly better than you. I'm the one who deserves to have the system. You're just a lowlife with no mother to raise you. You don't deserve anything." I squinted my eyes and sneered. She slapped me again. "What are you laughing at?" My voice was hoarse, but full of disdain. "Who is the one begging a lowlife for something now? If you kneel down, I might tell you." She lost her composure, screaming and going crazy. She even wanted to kill me. She held the knife with both hands and raised it high, but a strong hand from behind firmly grabbed her wrist. My ex-boyfriend Xander pushed the door open at some point, with a cold expression. You'll fall into her trap if you kill her. She's longing for a quick death right now. Amelia snorted and shook off his hand. If you're so capable, you ask her. Don't always make women do the dirty work. Are you even a man? Xander's mouth twitched, and he tried hard to suppress his anger. He raised his eyebrows, pushed his gold-rimmed glasses, and said in a calm tone, don't worry, we'll soon find a way to deal with you. Your only relative, your younger brother. We've caught him. I opened my eyes wide in a start. Kinsley. The door opened again, and a tall and strong man threw a person tied up like a zongzi in front of me. I struggled hard, and the chains jingled, but except for bleeding more, it was all in vain. Kinsley, are you still alive? My chapped lips moved, and I could only make a hoarse and unpleasant sound. Sis, the proud young man in white clothes in my memory had been tortured beyond recognition. His clothes were in tatters. His body was covered in blood. And his wounds were deep enough to show the bone, but he still glared fiercely at Xander and Amelia. You two dogs, you betrayed my sister, you won't die a good death. The man kicked him to the ground. You little brat. Kinsley's body seemed unable to bear the heavy blow anymore. Once he fell, he could hardly sit up. Seeing that he refused to submit, the man punched and kicked him. I roared, what kind of hero are you picking on a kid? But Kinsley gritted his teeth and didn't make a sound. Amelia sneered and leaned against the wall, while Xander walked forward unhurriedly. He stepped on Kinsley's neck hard. Tell me the location, and I'll let him go. My body trembled, and I closed my eyes in despair. Kinsley struggled desperately under his foot. Just kill me, let my sister go. I sighed and said, in the basement of Building 8, Courtyard 68, on the 13th Street of Bin Road in the southern part of the city. It's in a silver safe. After hearing this, Xander and Amelia couldn't hide their excitement and left in a hurry. Kinsley and I were left alone in the room. I was worried about his wounds, and my words were full of distress. How are you? Kinsley said in a flat tone. It's okay. Why did you give the thing to him? I lowered my eyes and said, I told him a false location. There are the most ghosts there. They'll lose a lot of people this time. Kinsley actually burst into hearty laughter. Then I saw him stand up nimbly and quickly. He untied the rope that bound him with a few swift movements and threw it aside. He took out a small knife from somewhere and pressed it against my neck. Tell me, where did you really put it? Too? His face showed greed, and the tip of the knife pierced into my neck. Sis, they all said you have a system. Tell me where you put it. Anyway, you won't live long like this. It's better to give it to me than to give it to an outsider, isn't it? I looked at him in surprise and then immediately understood everything. Did you let yourself be tied up on purpose? He snorted coldly. If I didn't let myself be tied up on purpose, how could I get in here to look for the thing? Tell me now. I closed my eyes, and my heart was filled with coldness. The thing is already gone. I sacrificed the disappearance of the system to save the lives of dozens of my partners. Among them were Xander and Amelia, but what was the result? Kinsley's lips trembled, looking incredulous. You mean, the system is gone? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. You must have hidden it somewhere. I laughed despairingly as I watched him tear off all my clothes. Even more, he started tearing at my flesh and bones. His eyes were blood red, and he roared loudly. Where is it hidden? Where is it hidden? He was my only relative, the younger brother I raised with my own hands. For him, I went out to work and earned money early, enduring all kinds of cold looks and bullying, but now, he was going to kill his own sister, to save his own life. I was really blind to have sacrificed so much for him. Kinsley went crazy. He cut open my stomach with a knife and rummaged for the cube. I felt my body getting colder and heavier. I was so sleepy. When I was caught, I wasn't without the thought of suicide, but I didn't even have the strength to bite my tongue. I was tortured for more than 10 days. Now, I was finally going to leave. When I closed my eyes completely, my ears were filled with Kinsley's panicked roars. Don't you dare die, Riley. Where is the thing? Where is it? This ungrateful wretch. He didn't even call me sister before I died. Just as I thought I was going to fall into a deep sleep and sink into the void, the system woke me up. The host has entered the first cycle. The system is being reloaded. System 2.0 has been successfully loaded. I opened my eyes again. I was back at the very beginning of the apocalypse. Mindless ghosts and monsters surged out from the ground and attacked humans without discrimination. My best friend Amelia was attacked by a white bone monster and was covered in blood. She cried and grabbed the hem of my pants. Riley, save me. 3. I looked at my intact body, and the golden cube in my hand. Was I reborn? And it was at the very beginning of everything. Amelia was still begging me non-stop. But I kicked her away in disgust. Get lost, don't dirty my clothes. She looked at me in disbelief, her eyes filled with tears. We've been friends since we were kids. We're the best friends, aren't we? Please come back, don't leave me behind. I watched as she was torn apart by the white bone monster, with pieces of flesh and blood falling off, and said indifferently, from now on, we're no longer friends. It wasn't that I couldn't kill her, but I was afraid she would die too easily, and I wouldn't feel satisfied. I asked, System, what's going on? Weren't you gone? The mechanical voice of the system rang in my ear. Hidden reward of System 101 new life, which will be activated when the host dies. This reward will make the host return to the moment when the system was first obtained and update and strengthen the system to become the noble System 2.0. I nodded to show that I understood. Then I searched for the current rewards retained by the system in my mind and found that there was only one left, the ghost's beloved knife. All the others were gone. Well, after all, the system was restarted. It was already good to have one. At this time, a huge army of ghosts and monsters surged out from the ground. The cries of people filled the air, and it was like a living hell. The ghost's beloved knife was a knife that could cut through everything. I summoned it skillfully and made my way through the crowd with flexible footwork. Soon, there were corpses everywhere. It felt so great not to have someone dragging me down. I gave a hard shake, and the blood on the handle of the knife fell to the ground in a perfect arc. In my previous life, I protected Amelia and fought my way out of the encirclement. I got a lot of injuries to protect her, but this time, I won't protect anyone. Sis is going to be beautiful on her own. 4. I went to a tall building and observed the locations where ghosts and monsters frequently appeared. Today was the first day of the strange resurgence. Countless demons, ghosts, and monsters from mythology appeared out of thin air, catching humans off guard. But the locations and movement trajectories of the ghosts and monsters were fixed. As long as I mastered the rules, I could survive easily. In my previous life, in order to protect Amelia, I wandered around like a headless fly, suffered a lot, and finally didn't reach the best location with the fewest ghosts and monsters. Now, I knew the operation system of this strange world and could survive more skillfully in the apocalypse. I saw that there were the fewest ghosts and monsters near an abandoned building. First come, first served. This location would become a sought-after place, and many people would come here later. I had to seize the opportunity. I found a car whose owner had died on the side of the road and rushed outside the building. I first found some food and water, and then entered the building to prepare to settle in. Unexpectedly, as soon as I entered the door, I saw several people gathered together in the open hall on the first floor, discussing countermeasures. There were actually people who were faster than me. One of them was Amelia. She had an angry expression on her face, looking as if she wanted to kill me. Was she still alive? Not only was she alive, but her injuries were also gone. It seemed that she had gathered a group of people and became the leader all of a sudden. After everyone noticed me, they suddenly became very vigilant. Amelia whispered a few words, and a big man was ready to attack. She wanted to get rid of me. I raised my eyebrows slightly and was about to take out my knife to strike first. But I suddenly noticed a silver star on Amelia's neck, perhaps because I had a system. I could vaguely sense that it was somewhat similar to my golden cube. Could it be that there was another system in this world? If so, then Amelia's injuries disappearing inexplicably and her being treated like a star could be explained. I was just about to ask the system to verify my speculation. Xander actually sprang out from nowhere and rushed in front of me in one stride. He stretched out his hand, trying to choke my throat. Riley, I really misjudged you. You're heartless and don't deserve to be human for not saving someone in danger. His movement, which he thought was swift, seemed like a child's fight in my eyes. It was light and slow. I took a small step back to dodge, and then kicked him hard in the stomach. I'm not human, get lost. Also, what's our relationship? What right do you have to control me? Xander was in pain. Lying on the ground with his hands covering his abdomen and unable to get up, he looked at me in surprise. He was shocked that his girlfriend, who used to be gentle and obedient to him, was no longer obedient. I glanced at him and guessed that he had broken 2 ribs. Then I clapped my hands and took out a small knife from my pocket. It seemed that Xander had teamed up with Amelia. The act of sparing Amelia just now had led to changes in the situation, and she had obtained a system. I wouldn't be so careless again in the future. When I was about to stab his neck, the the tip of the knife suddenly stopped. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't move it forward even a bit. My face turned cold, and I looked at Amelia. Her eyes were fierce, and she ordered, "I've temporarily given you my ability, quickly deal with this woman." Amelia's subordinates rushed towards me without hesitation. I quickly estimated our combat power. A small and agile girl was the closest to me, but I let her go. I first rushed towards the big guy. He seemed very shocked, but quickly entered the fighting state. His fist, as big as a sandbag, came at me quickly and fiercely. I used his strength to dodge, and then steadily cut open his artery with the small knife. All of a sudden, blood gushed out. He lost his combat power, but before I could give him a fatal blow, the others surrounded me. Amelia was as anxious as an ant on a hot pan. "Can't you win a fight with 5 against 1? You're such a bunch of losers. She's just a useless person without any ability." After hearing Amelia's indisputable order and somewhat insulting words, I saw the expression of a handsome and delicate guy change, but he quickly recovered and entered the fighting state. Oh, it seemed that their hearts weren't united, and there were some who were dissatisfied. I smiled and beckoned to them. "Come on." Then, while they were gathering their strength, I decisively rushed to a girl who was off guard and broke her arm, just as I was about to attack the handsome and delicate guy. A familiar figure suddenly flashed in front of me. 5. The person with extremely fast footwork who grabbed my wrist was my younger brother, Kinsley, and the moment I was touched, my body couldn't move immediately. Obviously, he had also obtained Amelia's ability. I opened my mouth. "Kinsley." He had a cold expression and grabbed my wrist so hard that it hurt. "Sister, I didn't expect you to be such a cold-blooded person. Xander is our friend who grew up with us. How could you try to kill him? Sister Amelia is like a sister to you. She has helped you so much. Why didn't you save her when she was in danger?" I opened and closed my mouth a few times but didn't make a sound. My long hair covered my face, so he couldn't see my expression. He held his head high and said in an arrogant tone, "Although you are my sister, in the apocalypse, only the fittest survive. The strong are everything, and I won't show you any favor. Our team leader, Sister Amelia, is the chosen one who is the only one with a system in this apocalypse, and we have also received her favor and have the ability to survive in the apocalypse, but you are just a piece of trash who could lose your life at any time. If you apologize to everyone, maybe I can ask Sister Amelia to spare your life, but you've already made a big mistake, and I'm afraid you won't be able to leave here intact." I lowered my head and couldn't hold it in anymore, then I burst out laughing. Seeing that I didn't listen to him, he was a bit angry, but his expression gradually turned into one of horror, because the hand that he was holding instead grabbed him. Kinsley exclaimed in surprise, How did you break free?" I curled my lips and kicked him flying. He fell to the ground and spat out a mouthful of blood. I wiped my shoe in disgust. "You're so disgusting. My system can exchange abilities for the number of ghosts and monsters killed, and I have just unlocked my second ability. Strength, as the name suggests, it gives me extraordinary strength, and Kinsley's immobilization ability is obviously not enough, and I easily broke free from it. I stepped on his neck with 1 foot. When our parents both died on my 10th birthday, you were only 5 years old, when you hid in my arms and cried, saying, 'Sister, I'm scared.' I vowed to protect you for a lifetime. We had no money, and I brought you up through hardships, working day and night to earn money for you to eat and go to school. When you were young and didn't know how to be grateful, that was excusable. Now that you've grown up and think you're capable, you actually turn against me. You even want to crush me under your feet. Kinsley, if I had raised a dog, it would wag its tail to make me happy. You're even worse than a beast. From today on, I'll act as if I don't have a brother like you." Kinsley was panicked and kept calling for Amelia, and our team leader didn't dare to step forward and attack me at all at this moment. She indeed has a system and maybe has the ability to fight me, but she's too cowardly. Amelia kept shouting, "What are you waiting for? Go up and attack her." But her other companions didn't move, as if they were observing the situation. I heard someone whispering to the handsome man, "Cade, this woman doesn't seem to have any abilities. Why is she so incredibly strong? She even broke Kinsley's ability." The man named Cade stopped moving and observed me, as if deep in thought. I was happy that no one was disturbing me. Just as I was exerting force with my foot, a thick black fog suddenly appeared in front of my eyes. After my vision recovered, they were all gone. 6. While searching for their whereabouts, I woke up the system. "What is that silver star?" System 2, 0 spoke. That is a virus system that shouldn't exist in this world. There should only be one system in this world. The virus system cannot be removed. To make up for the mistake, System 2.0 decides to compensate the host with 10,000 points. It is reminded that the host can not only exchange the number of ghosts and monsters killed for abilities but also upgrade the system. Although the virus system can also be upgraded, I believe that with the host's strength, her upgrading speed will be far slower than yours. I kicked open the door of a classroom. You have a sweet tongue. After searching for half a day, I found nothing. They probably hid through Amelia's system, and they might not even be in the school anymore. It's not worth wasting time on a few small rats, so I plan to settle the supplies and then hurry up to kill monsters and upgrade. In the apocalypse, the top priority for survival is to obtain sufficient resources, no matter how strong you are. You can't survive without food and water. Moreover, important supplies can be exchanged for information and are regarded as hard currency. Therefore, storage abilities like space are essential. It took me 10 days to kill 247 ghosts and monsters. I exchanged 3,000 of them for the ability static space, which is about 1,000 cubic meters. And all things put into it will never decay. I threw all the items I found, including necessities such as food, weapons, medicine, and clothes, into it. It took another 20 days to kill more than 6,000 monsters. This time, I plan to upgrade the system. Every time the system is upgraded, the host's abilities are also upgraded simultaneously. Compared with the first level, the third level system can be said to be an exponential crush. After the system received the experience points, it praised me. The host's upgrading speed is much faster than I expected. I raised my eyebrows slightly. What you said makes it seem like I'm playing a cultivation game. Is there a boss system or a main system? What is your purpose of choosing me? System 3.0 didn't speak for a while. The host is very smart. When you reach the full level of 10, I will tell you the true appearance of this world. The true appearance of the world. To be honest, I'm not interested. My goal is to become the strongest and always stay at the top of the pyramid on the 40th day of the apocalypse. When I was killing monsters as usual, I saw two sneaky people in the distance. 7. It was Kinsley and Cade. They were dressed in rags and were much thinner than a few days ago, and I was wearing a small red dress, looking neat and generous, with clean and fair skin, which didn't look like an apocalypse outfit at all. Although we were 1,000 meters apart, I activated the investigation skill, which allowed me to clearly hear their conversation and see everything within 1,000 meters. I could even see their ability levels. There were 1s on their heads, swaying in the wind, looking pitiful. When the two of them saw me, they were very alert and took a stance as if they were ready to fight at any moment. Kinsley gritted his teeth and said, "Damn it, where did she get so many supplies?" Cade frowned tightly. "Riley's strength is too powerful. Is Amelia sure she doesn't have a system?" Kinsley sneered and instinctively retorted, "She doesn't have anything. How could the system choose her?" Sister Amelia saw clearly that she doesn't have anything on her. Soon, he found the logical problem in his words. It was impossible for me to be so unreasonably strong without a cheat, but he was still confident. Maybe she has one, but so what? Once we kill a few hundred more monsters, Sister Amelia will be able to reach the second level. After her ability leaps forward, she can crush Riley in minutes. Cade didn't say anything, but his expression revealed that he didn't agree with Kinsley's words. I shook the blood off the tip of the knife and estimated the position. If I rushed up now, there was a 20% chance of hitting them with one blow, so I started to gather my strength and run, but they were so scared like little mice that they ran away in a flash. I stopped chasing them. The game of cat and mouse is not suitable for me who urgently needs to upgrade now. When the time is right, I won't let any of them go. On the 50th day of the apocalypse, when I was only 10 ghosts and monsters away from System 4.0, a group of strangers and a strange item suddenly appeared at my stronghold. 8 strangers came to the stronghold. Their clothes were tattered, and there were both adults and children among them. They were very scared when they saw me and quickly hid in the building. I ignored them and picked up a piece of paper at the door. It clearly wrote down the hiding place and movement trajectory of Amelia's team. There was no signature. I sneered and casually threw the note into the space. Whether it's a gesture of goodwill or a trap, I don't plan to verify it. I don't need companions, and I'm not in a hurry to find Amelia and the others. I have my own plan and rhythm. The exposure of the stronghold was also within my expectations, although this place is remote. There will be smart people who can find this place after observing the movement trajectory of the ghosts and monsters, so I didn't plan to hold my ground from the beginning, and there are no signs of anyone entering or leaving the room where I live. I don't care where they live, as long as they don't bother me. I can hear them moving above the 5th floor, and I live on the 3rd floor. At night, they held a small meeting. Some people were worried that my existence would threaten them, but most people chose to stay put. They had already experienced many conflicts and didn't have the strength to suffer more losses. After roughly knowing their strength, I had a clear idea in my mind and then slept soundly. When I went out the next day, I saw that group of people again in the stairwell. They were carefully going downstairs, probably to look for supplies. When they saw me going out openly, they stopped and were on guard against my every move. I understood that they didn't plan to cause trouble for me, so I passed them generously. The leader was a strong man in his 30s with a shallow scar on his head. He had a heroic and angular face. His eyes were lively. Seeing that I looked relaxed, he also relaxed his guard a little and nodded at me. I nodded as a greeting and then went out to kill ghosts and monsters as usual. After successfully upgrading, I returned to my residence, erased all the traces of my presence, and planned to leave. Today is an important day, and I have been preparing for it for a long time. The 51st day of the apocalypse is a huge turning point in the strange resurgence, and just today, Amelia came to cause trouble for me. 9. When I was about to leave, I heard hundreds of people from Amelia's group coming in a mighty manner. This is not surprising. After all, in this world full of ghosts and monsters, it's difficult to survive. Having abilities means having a smooth path and an existence like having cheats. It's only a matter of time before Amelia becomes the center of attention. I activated the investigation ability and observed that half of these hundreds of people had abilities, and the other half, those without abilities, were armed with guns and clubs. The leaders were my old friends Xander and Kinsley. They were dressed nicely and had an air of being officials. It seems that they have obtained a lot of equipment during this period and are not as ragged and poor as before. Even the ordinary soldiers are at least decent and clean, and Amelia was surrounded in the center and was the key protection target. She held her head up haughtily, with a huge 2 on her head. Oh, so she has upgraded. No wonder she's so arrogant. I looked at my watch and then appeared at the door calmly with my arms crossed. When Amelia saw my relaxed expression, her mouth twitched first, and her eyebrows were twisted like a twist of dough. Then she let out a sneer. You managed to escape last time, but you won't be so lucky this time. I scratched my head. Last time, it seemed like you were the one who escaped. Her subordinates all stole glances at her with inquiring looks. Amelia felt a bit embarrassed and just waved her hand. Attack. Kinsley took the lead and rushed towards me at a very fast speed. I stepped back and grabbed a knife out of thin air. I steadily blocked his small knife. Kinsley was slightly surprised, and Xander in the distance took a sharp breath. She really has a system too. After Amelia saw that knife, her expression gradually turned gloomy, and she signaled more people to attack. Cade, your team go up. Cade glanced at her and frowned slightly. Okay, more than a dozen ability users in his team were ready to make a move. I didn't take it to heart and curled the corner of my mouth. With their combat power, it doesn't matter how many of them come, the result will be the same. Here, Kinsley composed himself and exerted force again, attacking from a tricky angle. He was fast and fierce, having honed his ability to a high level. Unfortunately, it's just a second-level ability. It doesn't even give me a chance to have some fun. His small knife stabbed past my face. I grabbed his arm and squeezed it gently. Crack. His forearm broke into 2 pieces and hung down at a strange angle. It took him 2 seconds to accept this fact, and then the pain hit. I was about to slit his throat, but I was stopped by others. Kinsley quickly withdrew from the front line and retreated to the rear for treatment. The other ability users filled his position and launched the next round of attack. I pursed my lips and was very annoyed. Although their abilities can only tickle me, it's also very annoying when dozens of flies are buzzing around, so I thought of a new way. I focused my attack on one person and directly cut off his head as a warning to others. The head rolled on the ground, and blood spurted everywhere. That person still maintained the terrified expression before his death, with his eyes wide open and his tongue hanging out. I thought it could have a deterrent effect and scare them off, but unexpectedly, they were only scared for a moment. Some people even fought more bravely. Don't retreat. This is Boss Lynn's enemy. If we don't kill her today, we will be killed tomorrow. Someone shouted loudly, and those who were scared started moving again. Boss Lin's ability is the strongest, she can lead us to victory. Friends, charge, another person shouted. Everyone has gradually gotten used to the bloody scenes of the apocalypse and naturally won't be scared by me, coupled with their eagerness for Amelia's abilities and the brainwashing of Xander and the others. They are even less likely to retreat. Just as I was thinking hard about how to deal with them in large numbers, there was a new commotion in the stairwell. 10. The new neighbors upstairs timidly looked around at the stairway. The building shook violently from time to time, and sand and soil fell, disturbing them who were resting upstairs, watching our fierce battle. They were as scared as little rabbits, not knowing whether to advance or retreat. I signaled for a truce. Amelia, let them go first, don't hurt the innocent. Amelia raised her eyebrows. What if they are your allies? I definitely won't let them go. She waved her hand, and several ability users rushed towards them. I sighed and gave up the fight here and turned to save them. Although being a saint is not my hobby, neither is turning a blind eye to someone in danger. While resisting, I observed their situation. Go, it's not safe here. I twisted someone's neck with one hand and wiped the blood off my face. Perhaps my appearance was too terrifying. And a little girl with twin ponytails had tears in her big eyes. Her mother quickly covered her mouth when she saw that the girl was about to cry. Okay, we'll leave now. I stabbed the knife into the enemy's heart. Go to the back door. Got it. The neighbors retreated neatly and had no nostalgia for me, their savior, because although they were afraid of Amelia, they were also afraid of me. The enemy suffered heavy casualties, but the wounds on my body were also increasing. Amelia saw the hope of victory. More and more people rushed into the building to fight me to the death. Time passed by minute. The setting sun dyed the sky a terrifying scarlet, and the sunlight gradually faded. I looked at my watch and thought that the time was almost up. Just then, there was a gunshot. A blood hole suddenly appeared on my right shoulder, and blood gushed out. Xander held a pistol and aimed at me expressionlessly. I instantly lost my strength and knelt on one knee. The ridiculous thing was that just as I lost my combat power, Amelia's subordinates actually stopped attacking. Seeing that I couldn't get up again, Amelia walked into the building gracefully. She wanted to give me the finishing blow herself. We were sisters for 10 years. But I never thought that in the end, we would have to fight to the death. I don't want this. She took out a pistol and aimed it at my head. But two tigers can't share one mountain. I won't allow the existence of a second system. Just then, a melodious bell rang. Dong, dong, dong. Amelia's face suddenly changed. We were all too familiar with this sound. On the first day when the ghosts and monsters appeared, 3 thick bells rang out for no reason. It was as if the heavens pitted the world and rang the death knell. The next second, a spatial rift was torn open in the ceiling above Amelia's head. Countless ghosts and monsters swarmed out. I smiled, got up nimbly, and retreated to the corner. Enjoy the joy of the next stage of the ghosts and monsters party, my enemies. This is the first crucial node of the apocalypse. Ghosts and monsters no longer appear from specific locations and move along fixed routes, but drop randomly. The place that originally had the fewest ghosts and monsters has instead become the most frequent dropping point. I accurately timed this moment and used the right time and place to deal the heaviest blow to Amelia's team. I held a knife in one hand and carefully observed the positions of Amelia and the others. However, the ghosts and monsters were packed densely. It was too strenuous for me to deal with the monsters rushing towards me while looking for people at the same time. So I left through the prepared hidden back door, watched them being torn and devoured, and made a friendly gesture of goodbye. I could still vaguely hear Amelia and Kinsley angrily and unwillingly shouting my name. 11. It's a pity that I couldn't kill the 3-person group with my own hands. I was driving and thinking somewhat regretfully. The wounds on my body were healing at a visible speed, although some places looked terrifying. In fact, I could hardly feel the pain. My ability strength has undergone multiple evolutions, making my physical body saint-like. Not only is the recovery speed astonishing, but I can also control the pain at will. I would turn on the pain perception from time to time to carefully check if there is anything wrong with my body, and turn off 9/10 of it during battles to increase my combat power. When I drove to a relatively secluded place, I took a short rest, took out water and food from the space to eat, and observed the current situation. Outside, there were corpses everywhere, and ghosts and monsters refreshed randomly, breaking the stable situation that had gradually formed over dozens of days. The safe houses that all parties had been looking for suddenly became dangerous houses, Everyone fled in all directions, hurriedly avoiding and looking for new shelters. A woman was holding a child and patting my car window. Please, save us, we haven't eaten for 5 days, please give us some food. Her 5 fingers left several bloodstains on my car. I looked at her for a few times, started the car, and drove aside. When the woman saw me leave, she sat on the ground and cried bitterly, and the child also let out bursts of crying. I opened the car door and threw out a package, food, clothes, and water. The woman was stunned for a moment and staggered over to pick up the package. Thank you, I nodded and added. Find a house of less than 10 square meters to live in. Closing the car door, when I left, I saw the woman bowing deeply to me in the rear view mirror. Although the ghosts and monsters in the second stage will refresh everywhere, they will never appear in small spaces, so I found a place in the deserted suburbs to settle down. I transformed the small building hidden behind the thick trees into a layout that is difficult for ghosts and monsters to invade, and divided the rooms inside into countless small rooms. In this way, the ghosts and monsters outside are not easy to get in, and there will be no refreshing situation inside either. I am very satisfied with my new residence. It is warm and lovely, and not disturbed. If there were no third stage, I think I would live here forever, but the fact is in front of me. The third stage is dozens of times more dangerous than the second stage. If I don't prepare in advance, with my current strength, I might die soon, so I started the road of continuing to upgrade the system. My daily life is simple and compact: sleep, eat, kill monsters, and pick up equipment. Half a year passed like this. The system was upgraded to 6.0, and almost no new abilities were added. It's not that I don't want to obtain abilities, but the price of the new abilities set by the system is too high. For example, upgrading to 5.0 requires 30,000 ghosts and monsters, but obtaining a new ability requires at least 50,000 points. It's a big loss. The additional reward for system upgrading is the improvement of existing abilities. The attack power of the Ghost's beloved knife and strength at level 6.0 has increased exponentially, which is enough for me to kill monsters. Now, I can face the attacks of hundreds of monsters at the same time without any problem. My strength is comparable to that of Captain America, and killing monsters with a knife is like cutting tender tofu. It can be said that currently, no creature can pose a threat to me. So I decisively gave up updating my abilities and gave priority to leveling up. Space has expanded to the size of a football field, and things are neatly arranged by me in categories. It's enough for me to use for about 10 years. I estimated that System 6.0 is enough for me to safely get through the third stage, but for safety's sake, I hope to reach 7.0 before the third stage opens in half a year. However, this requires 200,000 points, and I currently only have 2,000. At my speed, it will probably take 2 years to reach level 7.0, should I buy an ability again, but I still prefer leveling up. I was sitting in a tree, gnawing on a cucumber in distress, when I was in a dilemma. Suddenly, I detected a team coming 3 kilometers away. 12. It was a team of 30 people, and the leader was that neighbor with a shallow scar on his head who was in the abandoned building at that time. They were being attacked by ghosts and monsters and were retreating while fighting. Everyone was wounded and didn't seem to be able to hold on for long. It was estimated that they had encountered a large-scale refresh of ghosts and monsters, so they were in such a sorry state. I finished eating the cucumber, clapped my hands, and planned to go up and help. It's not out of humanitarian considerations, after being reborn. I'm no longer a helpful person. Mainly, if they run a little further, they will be close to my warm little home, so I decisively took action. When the scar-headed man in the lead was about to be flattened by the huge palm of a monster, I cut off the monster's arm with a knife. Under my easy attacks like cutting melons and vegetables, soon, strange-shaped corpses were lying all around, and the monsters were cleared. I casually put away the knife and reached out to pull the scar-headed man up. When he saw me, he was first stunned and then a bit pleasantly surprised. "It's you." After getting up, he bent down slightly. His 2 big hands full of calluses tightly held my tender white palm, and he kept thanking me. "I remember you. It's been half a year since we parted last time. Last time, you saved my wife and daughter, and today you saved us again. Thank you so much." So that little girl with twin ponytails was his child. The other several wounded men saw me easily solve the monsters like a divine soldier descending from the sky. Coupled with the fact that the leader and I were old acquaintances, they all showed respectful expressions. I was a little embarrassed by the thanks. You're welcome, I just passed by. If there's nothing else, I'll go first. The man spoke in a gentle tone, with a deep but powerful voice. He looked at me without blinking. No, we must thank you, to be honest. My companions and I have established a small territory. It's not big, but there are abundant food and supplies. You can choose whatever you want. The others echoed and surrounded me. I declined with a smile, but the man had no intention of letting me go, and his eyes were firm. I shook my head. No need. As if suddenly remembering something, he let go of my hand and said a little embarrassedly, "People with your kind of ability should not lack supplies, I suppose." He smoothly changed the topic. "Maybe there's something your team needs, you can also mention it casually." My eyes flickered, and I understood the meaning of his words. I said calmly, "I don't have a team, I'm alone." The man's eyes lit up for a moment. "If possible, I would like to invite you to join us." 13. I thought about it. Maybe this is not a bad thing, although there is a possibility of being betrayed. Teammates can indeed bring a little sense of security and important information about local forces. Furthermore, I can retreat home at any time, so I won't lose anything. I agreed to his request and went to their stronghold. On the way, I learned that the man's name was Kieran. He briefly introduced the situation of the territory to me. He said the place was not big and might wrong me. I didn't care about that. It took 5 hours to drive there. When we arrived at the destination, the guards immediately opened the door with guns when they saw the leader Kieran. As soon as we entered, we were surrounded by several people. "Kieran, you're back." Kieran nodded and introduced me to them. "This is our savior, Riley. Don't be fooled by her small size. She's really amazing. She'll be living with us from now on." They shook hands with me respectively and introduced themselves. They were all managers here. As soon as I entered, my attention was focused on the construction of the territory, and I was even a little surprised. They connected the university town in this city and transformed it into a residence. There were actually tens of thousands of people living here. The security, logistics, and other divisions of labor were complete, and all kinds of facilities were available. Everyone was working in an orderly manner, just like a normal small society, although there were also ghosts and monsters haunting around. The frequency was not high and would be quickly dealt with by the security personnel. It was not as small scale as Kieran had said. There was indeed an element of modesty. I deeply understood the difficulty of establishing a society at such a fast speed in the apocalypse. In my previous life, it took me, Amelia, and Xander 2 years to barely build a base of this scale. Now, without a system, he has the ability to convince the public like this. Thinking of the unlucky name Amelia, my right eyelid twitched. Then, I saw Kinsley being surrounded by a group of people and walking over. He spoke in a frivolous tone. "I heard that a powerful girl has come." I didn't expect it to be an old acquaintance. 14. I looked at the number 4 on his head and knew why he was so arrogant even though he had been beaten so badly last time. It seemed that Amelia had also worked quite hard. The person who brought Kinsley here was Wesley, who was on an equal footing with Kieran here. He had the shrewd air of a businessman. When he came over, he kept sizing me up as I stood next to Kieran. Although the two had the same status, there were often frictions between them, and neither of them was convinced by the other. The main reason was that Wesley was an expansionist, advocating the use of force to suppress other territories, while Kieran was a conservative, inclined to establish a more perfect protection system and not to be rash. The territory was gradually divided into 2 camps, and naturally, I, who was brought by Kieran, was on his team. After hearing this on the way here, I had an idea in my mind. I'm afraid that inviting me to join is not just a matter of gratitude. Kieran has his own plans. The conflict between the two sides is inevitable sooner or later. He wants to enhance his combat power by recruiting me. Kieran saw that my expression was not right and said gently and very frankly, "Miss, you can withdraw now if you want. I have my own selfish motives for inviting you, but I will not change you in any way." I raised my hand. "It's okay. I won't take back what I promised. As long as you don't deceive me, I can fight at any time." Kieran was a bit surprised at how quickly I agreed and nodded. Naturally, but unexpectedly, as soon as we entered, we ran into Wesley. Kieran subconsciously blocked me behind him. Wesley clapped his hands and greeted me with a smile. "Is this the new little sister? She's really pretty." He had a look of sudden realization and turned his eyes to Kieran. "Kieran brought this little sister here. Does your wife know? Do I need to keep it a secret?" Kieran's face turned so dark that it could drip water. but Wesley changed the subject. Haha, just a little joke, don't take it to heart, brother. These are my friends Kinsley and Cade, whom I invited to visit the community. Kinsley looked at me with a playful expression, while Cade had no hostility and even shook hands with Kieran. Wesley prepared a dinner for Kinsley and the others to welcome them and invited us to go together, originally. Kieran wanted to refuse, but I decisively nodded and said, okay, I'll definitely go. Kieran looked at me in surprise, but fearing for my safety, he had to agree. 15. We had dinner in a luxurious private room, and the cadres of both sides were present. The wine cups were being passed around. And it seemed very lively, but in fact, there was an undercurrent. The restaurant was in a neutral area, and both sides had arranged people outside, and I knew in my heart that no matter how many people there were, it was meaningless. The key was Kinsley and Cade. They were the core of the opponent's combat power. Unfortunately, I couldn't see the two people's abilities, only their levels, and more importantly, why were only the two of them here? Where were Amelia and Xander? Although there were many questions, it didn't affect my eating. Kieran kept a tense face throughout, while I happily ate one rib and one piece of braised pork after another. He whispered, Wesley has a deep mind and is a smiling tiger. We've suffered a lot from him before. Riley, be careful. I blinked my eyes to indicate that it was okay. Wesley patted Kinsley on the shoulder and joked, your name is very similar to Riley's. Are you relatives? Kinsley glanced at me and said coldly. We have nothing to do with each other. Wesley rolled his eyes, saw that our relationship was not good, and glossed over it. Then he skillfully shifted the topic to Kieran and talked about the two people's old past. When we first established the stronghold, it was really difficult. I remember when we were renovating the first building, it was Kieran who applied the cement himself, and I was out looking for people all day, always afraid of being killed by others. Now it's good. The scale has gradually grown, and it can be regarded as the bitterness coming to an end, and such a beautiful little sister has joined us. When he was getting emotional, Wesley got up and brought me a glass of wine. Come on, little sister, let's have a drink. After that, he drank it all in one gulp. I smiled with my eyes bent and took the wine cup with both hands. Then I slowly spilled the wine on the ground. There's poison in the wine. Kieran's face changed, while Wesley swayed the cup, neither admitting nor denying it. At this time, the sound of tables and chairs moving sounded. I turned my head and saw that Kieran's men were lying crookedly on the ground. There was something wrong with the food. Kieran was a bit surprised. The dishes were all checked. How could there still be a problem? It wasn't the problem of the people who cooked the food. It was Kinsley who tampered with it after it was served. Kieran stood up on guard, while I calmly sat down, continued to tear off a piece of lamb chop meat, and chewed it vigorously. Kinsley clicked his tongue. You're really not afraid of the knockout drug? I wiped my hands with a smile. Don't waste food. It's a pity. Cade protected Wesley behind him and drew out a long whip out of thin air to attack Kieran. I took out a long knife and blocked every one of his attacks. Wesley saw that I also had a system, raised his eyebrows, and said unhappily to Kinsley in a low voice, you didn't say she had a system. Kinsley had an indifferent attitude. It doesn't matter, our level is above hers, and after today, there will be only one system left. Kieran was obviously also a little surprised. He didn't know that there was such magical power as in novels in this world. He saw that I looked normal and whispered, Riley, can you win? I nodded, reassuring him. Although it was a bit troublesome to protect so many people, as long as the two troublesome people were solved, there would be no trouble. I sped up and defeated Cade. He was knocked unconscious by me with a palm. Kinsley made a surprise attack on Kieran at a very fast speed, but I stopped him. He changed his mind and wanted to kill the others first. I admit that his speed was astonishing, so much so that his figure was barely visible. If it were an ordinary person, they couldn't withstand even one of his moves. Back then, when I had just reached level 4, I could only barely receive a few of his attacks. But now, I'm at level 6. Dealing with him is like a cat catching a mouse. With ease, I broke through his attacks one by one, and his body was slashed with blood by me. Only then did he realize something was wrong. He said in a huff, when did you become so strong? I rolled my eyes. I've always been outrageously strong. Okay, in the end, I twisted off his arm. Wesley was terribly frightened by this fight. He originally thought he had brought 2 big shots, but it turned out they were just small fries. He took out a gun to scare us off, and his finger had even pressed the trigger. Just as I was about to swing my knife to block, Cade whipped him flying with a lash, and he died on the spot. I raised an eyebrow. You were faking it. Cade nodded. I've long since not wanted to follow Amelia. Did you receive the note that informed you of their location? That was my show of good faith. Let's not discuss this for now. We need to leave quickly. It's not safe here. Before he could finish speaking, Kinsley, who was still breathing, let out a low laugh. None of you are going to escape. Just then, a spatial rift was torn open above us. Countless hideous ghosts and monsters dropped down. 16. Kieran was horrified when he saw this, and Cade's face also darkened. He said, Kinsley can predict where the ghosts and monsters will drop. Arranging to eat here was to wipe you all out. I first dealt with Kinsley with a single knife, then I steadily, accurately, and ruthlessly killed the ghosts and monsters that were about to attack the unconscious people, while saying to Cade, send them out first. After several trips of carrying, the people in the restaurant were all evacuated. Kieran sent reinforcements, and they killed the ghosts and monsters that rushed out of the door. Just as I was carrying out the last unconscious person, the iron gate of the restaurant crashed to the ground, trapping me inside. The iron gate was thick, and the ghosts and monsters couldn't break through it for a while. Cade was unhappy. Kieran, what does this mean? Kieran shook his head. I didn't do this. Cade's mind worked quickly, and he said in a low voice, it was Wesley who calculated the time to lock you up, almost the moment the door closed. Kieran called the technicians and told them to open the door, hearing that there seemed to be more and more ghosts and monsters inside the room, fearing that I would have difficulty resisting. Cade became a bit flustered. Kieran was also anxious. It will take at least 10 minutes to open the door. I simply gave up resisting. Cade shouted, Riley, hold on. I tossed my knife aside and plopped down on a stool. I'm not holding on anymore. Yawning, I said, I ate too much just now. I'm a bit sleepy. A giant ghost with a gaping mouth and fingers like blades charged at me menacingly. I stared at it without blinking. It seemed to be enraged by me and roared as it swung a palm down dash. But at the moment its sharp claws touched me, it was blocked by an invisible barrier. Not believing it, it waved with all its might, opening its huge mouth. It bit at me. As a result, several of its teeth were knocked out, and it howled in pain. I sat where I was, watching all the ghosts and monsters launch meaningless attacks on me like clowns. This was the only skill I had added in such a long time, physical protection. As the name implies, all physical attacks will be blocked. It's a very useful skill. I held back just now. Now that all the people present were teammates, there was no need to hold back anymore. I sat quietly and rested for 2 minutes, rubbing my stomach for a while. Those ghosts and monsters were somewhat intelligent, seeing that I was a tough nut to crack. They wanted to rush out of the restaurant to kill the others. After I digested my food a bit, I picked up my knife and killed them all. Then, with one slash, I split the iron gate open. I nodded in approval at Kieran. This gate is good. Get this kind of strong gate for all important locations in the future. Everyone present looked at me in shock. Cade held his forehead and said, so you could get out. 17. Amelia had developed an organization of several thousand people, and this time Kinsley came here to investigate the situation and then decide whether to join or not. But after receiving the news of Cade's betrayal, Amelia quickly gave up the plan to form an alliance and then disappeared without a trace. Cade brought several hundred people to join me, not to join Kieran. But me, at first, I was quite reluctant. But Cade was firm in his tone. He didn't believe in Kieran's strength, only in mine. But I was too lazy to manage people. Cade said, I'll handle all the trivial matters. You just need to make overall plans. It won't be tiring at all. I didn't have a title, and it was very difficult to lead people. Kieran said, you will be in charge of the security system from now on. As for management, I will send trustworthy people to your subordinates to handle affairs. You don't need to worry about it. So I had no choice but to reluctantly agree, at this critical point of the apocalypse. Large and small bases had been established all around, many people became lords of their own mountains, and a city could be divided into hundreds of territories. This meant that not only did we have to defeat the monsters, but we also had to guard against attacks from all sides. I was very unhappy. Unlike Wesley, I didn't want to initiate battles on my own. But I couldn't tolerate the situation where the lords around were eyeing us covetously every day, trying to annex us. So as the main commander, I captured dozens of bases with almost no casualties, expanding our territory dozens of times. In this process, as the main combat force, I directly determined the outcome of the battles. With the expansion of our power, our armaments gradually became more sophisticated, and we occupied half of the city in a crushing manner. Some other territories surrendered voluntarily after seeing our achievements and joined us. Just then, more and more people supported me to become the leader. If it were my subordinates who said this, would directly report it to Kieran, but the first person to say this was Kieran himself. He believed that my overwhelming strength was the greatest advantage of our territory. Many leaders of other bases chose to surrender after seeing my strength. Therefore, only if I took office could I convince the public. After listening to his words, while gnawing on a pig's trotter, I raised a finger and wagged it. No, I won't do it. Being the security team leader is already annoying enough. I don't want to be the leader. Kieran's persuasion was fruitless, and we were at an impasse. The system prompt sounded in a timely manner. Unlock hidden ability. Share. If the host becomes the leader of a region, they will obtain this ability. This skill can give or take back the host's original abilities to others. At the same time, the number of monsters they kill will be recorded as the number of kills by the host. That is to say, the monsters killed by my people also count as mine. I checked the points in the mall. The current number of monsters killed was 30,000, and for System 7-0, it was 200,000. I still had 4 months, and during this time, I could take care of 100,000 on my own. If I had the help of others, upgrading would be just around the corner. I thought about it, chewed on the meat, and vaguely agreed. Okay then, I'll give it a try. Kieran heaved a sigh of relief and added, don't worry, although I'll step back to the second in command position, I'll still do my job. You'll hardly have any pressure. I nodded, put down the bone, and said, call the guys in, I'll distribute the abilities. When Cade betrayed Amelia, he and the people he brought all became ordinary people. Using the share skill, I distributed the abilities to them. They were very excited, and all the depression from losing their abilities before dissipated. What's more, this time my abilities were more powerful, and it was more convenient to fight. For all the people in the security system, I gave different abilities according to each person's conditions. This greatly enhanced our armed forces. This was not enough. With sufficient front line forces, the logistics troops also had to keep up. So for everyone who was 18 years old or older, I planned to give them skills. I asked them to categorize the fields of everyone's work and then made a unified distribution. For the kitchen chef, I equipped him with strength, enabling him to cook more meals in a day, greatly improving efficiency. For the teacher who managed young children, I assigned the low-level investigation to ensure the safety of the children. For the construction workers, I gave them physical protection and space, and the speed of building the city had a significant leap. Normally, I spent most of my time going out to fight, first killing the monsters, and then beating down those who refused to submit. I spent a small amount of time learning management skills from Kieran to improve the overall strength of the territory. After we unified the city, I asked Kieran to name the territory. I propped my head up and said, we need a name. Kieran nodded and thought for a while. How about calling it Shusheng? The rising sun in the east represents the second rebirth of humanity. I really liked it. That's it. From my joining to the birth of the Shusheng base, it took less than half a year. Not long after the base was born, I happily leveled up. Coincidentally, the day after I upgraded to 7-0, the third stage came to an end. 18. The third stage was an extremely dangerous stage where it was difficult for humans to survive. I clearly remember that in my previous life, on the second day it opened, our manpower was reduced by half, because from today on, all the ghosts and monsters were equipped with special abilities, and their combat power soared. Before, all their attacks were physical attacks like smashing and hitting, which were relatively easy to guard against, but after that, they were all magical attacks. A laser cannon could be fired from 100 meters away, and it was extremely difficult to deal with modern weapons and equipment. But now it was different. My people were all ability users. Moreover, their ability levels were much higher than those of the ghosts and monsters. If the ghosts and monsters started upgrading from level 1, the highest level I could currently distribute was level 5, which could be considered an easy crush. Even if we couldn't win battles as casually as before, we could still ensure that all the teams that went out could return safely with almost zero casualties. The overbearing strength and rapid expansion of the Shusheng base alarmed all the territories in the north. Before I received the letters from the leaders of the northern bases, I originally thought they were declarations of war, but unexpectedly, that was not the case. They had suffered heavy losses in the third stage. If this continued, many territories would be destroyed. For the sake of survival, they urgently needed my abilities, so they chose to join unconditionally, not having to fight. I was happy and relaxed. Kieran was an extremely capable leader. He arranged all the territories clearly, including the leaders of all parties and the distribution of abilities. In this way, without shedding a drop of blood, we expanded the base to cover the entire north. Regarding the whereabouts of Amelia, I had people keep an eye on it, Cade reported. The leader of the southernmost region saw them a month ago. It was a small team of less than 10 people, hiding everywhere. Since they didn't belong to Shusheng and exposed their identities as ability users, they were very conspicuous. The leader immediately ordered their arrest, but they escaped and are now missing. It is said that Amelia's subordinates were dissatisfied with her autocratic and inhumane way of giving orders, so they split into many organizations. They launched fierce struggles to snatch Amelia's system, and Amelia gradually lost power and finally ended up in a state of hiding. I looked at the map and nodded, asking, "Are you sure the group of people the southern leader saw were Amelia and her group?" Cade shook his head. They were discovered during a night patrol. At that time, they were resisting the attacks of ghosts and monsters. The people below couldn't see clearly and couldn't confirm whether it was Amelia herself. The system rang in my ear. First of all, congratulations to the host for being promoted to 8-0. Secondly, the system has detected that Amelia's virus system is still active. Please pay attention, host. This meant that they were still alive, or perhaps someone else had snatched Amelia's system, and Amelia and Xander were already dead. In any case, as long as the virus system was finally destroyed, it would all be over. As for Amelia and Xander, there's no rush. I'll look for them slowly. Just as I was pondering the next countermeasure, Kieran pushed the door open and entered. Leader, the first ghost with intelligence has been discovered. We captured it alive, and it is now locked up in the underground cell. 19. Kieran took me downstairs to see the ghost that had evolved intelligence. It was chained up, with a sharp beak and fangs, black, blue skin, and covered in bloodstains. When it saw us approaching, it tilted its head, and its eyes rolled around. As if identifying us one by one, it spoke human language. Let me go. I had someone open the cage and took out a small knife. Gently, I cut open its skin. The ghost howled and struggled violently, but soon, the wound on its body healed. I put away the knife and nodded, confirmed, the wound can heal naturally, and it has intelligence. This is the 4th stage. Kieran sighed, his eyebrows knitted tightly. Cade's expression was also not good. The 4th stage came silently without the sound of bells. Kieran said in a low voice, "The intelligence of the ghosts and monsters seems to have evolved naturally. If they become smarter and smarter, it will only be more difficult for humans to survive." I smiled faintly and patted him on the shoulder as I walked out of the cage. "It's okay, didn't we discuss countermeasures before? Do as I say, and everyone will be safe." The arrival of the 4th stage was indeed terrifying. In the past, the ghosts and monsters acted on instinct, but now having intelligence meant that in the future, they would form tactics, and even occupy territories and establish countries. Before I was locked in the basement by Xander, once on our way back from negotiating with other leaders, we suddenly encountered a group of extremely intelligent ghosts and monsters, resulting in almost the entire team being wiped out. All my comrades died in battle, and Xander and Amelia were on the verge of death. It was at that time that I used the system to exchange for their lives. The next second they woke up, I was knocked unconscious and locked in the dungeon. If it were the me who had just been reborn, I might have gritted my teeth in hatred when recalling the past. But now I can recall all this calmly. What's the point of arguing with people who are about to die? Regarding the crisis situation of the evolution of ghosts and monsters, actually, there's nothing to be afraid of. Although the 4th stage seemed menacing, it had the strangest characteristic. We walked out of the underground, and Cade took 2 quick steps to my side. "If it's really as you said, the 4th stage might be the easiest level." Just as I was about to reply, a subordinate came running in a hurry, bringing extremely bad news. 20. His face was flustered, and he was still out of breath. "Report from the 5th district in the southernmost part. The patrol team sent out this morning has gone missing." Kieran was surprised and said, "What?" I lowered my eyes and pondered, and Cade's face quickly darkened. Since I distributed abilities, in almost every battle, there has been almost no situation of losing soldiers. This news has never happened before. Logically speaking, currently, the intelligence of ghosts and monsters has just emerged. and their highest IQ reaches the level of a 3-year-old child. How could they possibly defeat a whole team? The messenger continued. After they went missing, the leader of the 5th district immediately sent people to search. The people who came back said they saw a group of neatly lined up ghosts wearing clothes. Cade grasped the key point. A neat formation, a high degree of obedience is the result of several years of special training for humans, that is to say, on the second day of the opening of the 4th stage. The behavior of ghosts and monsters has been regulated to such an extent, it's unreasonable. After thinking for a while, an idea slowly emerged in my mind, then I curled the corners of my lips. I understood, almost without hesitation. I assembled a 100-person team with proficient ability use and excellent equipment and rushed to the 5th district. It took 3 days for us to reach the destination. After arriving, the 5th district told us a fantastic piece of news. A territory established by ghosts and monsters had emerged in the south. 21. Jet, the leader of the 5th district, projected the captured images. This was captured by our inspectors. Ghosts and monsters of various shapes walked upright like humans. Some were holding guns, some were looking around, and they were even having proficient conversations. They unilaterally hunted down humans who had conflicts with them. Their regeneration and special abilities made their strength far exceed that of these people. Many humans died or were injured. Some, seeing the bad situation, knelt on the ground and begged for mercy, and they tied these people up and took them to the car. Cade was surprised and said, "They can drive." I let out two sounds and said, "They can also use guns." Impressive, impressive. Cade turned his head to look at me. "Why are you so calm?" Taking a sip of water, I chuckled. "I'm not calm, I'm actually happy inside. The virus system that I've been looking for a long time finally has a lead. If the only variable after being reborn compared to last time is that virus system, then this mutation of ghosts and monsters turning into humans must be related to it, probably a new skill unlocked by the virus system. It's not that ghosts and monsters turn into humans, but that humans turn into ghosts and monsters. Too much talk is useless." I slapped my thigh and stood up. "Let's go, capture a few and ask them." As soon as we said it, we immediately set off and headed to the nearest location where ghosts and monsters appeared. We waited in ambush for a long time before a group of them arrived. The number 5 was clearly written on their heads. There was no mistake. I flashed into the group of ghosts and monsters and killed one first. Only then did the other people react and threw various skills at me. One person shouted, "Damn it, this is Riley." My eyes flashed, and I immediately knocked him out. Then I threw him to Cade. "This one can talk." Put him in the space. Cade took him and with a thought, the thing disappeared. This move shocked all the people, and their attacks became more violent, coming like a rainstorm, but my system had already been upgraded to level 9, and the abilities I distributed to my subordinates had also reached level 7. Beating them was very easy. Soon, we captured 5, knocked them out, and put them in the space, and killed all the rest. It took less than a day to go home with the fruits of victory and carefully interrogate them. Their confessions confirmed the accuracy of my thoughts. Amelia wasn't dead and had become the wife of the Ghost City's lord. After she fled to the south a month ago, she obtained a new system skill, turning strong people into ghosts and monsters, increasing the survival rate of her teammates. Many people were envious of the immortality provided by Amelia, so they joined them one after another. Now, Amelia's team was getting bigger and bigger, and by now, it had actually gathered nearly 10,000 ghosts and monsters. Among them, there was a man who was extremely adaptable to the ghost-like body and had an explosive combat power. Amelia quickly established a relationship with him, and the two loved each other and vowed to increase the expansion efforts. Several major territories in the south had been gathered and merged by them. Cade asked me what to do. I was lying on the sofa, playing with a small knife. "In 5 days, take more than 1,000 people and rush into their territory. I want to see Amelia." Comparing the number of our people with the enemies, Cade was a bit worried. A 10-fold difference in numbers is too wide gap. It might be a bit difficult. I smiled. "Did you forget about the 5th stage in 5 days? Don't worry. I have a plan in mind." 22. 5 days later, in the setting sun's afterglow, I led more than 1,000 people and rushed into the Ghost City. I took the lead in the charge and opened a breakthrough with my own strength. The rest of the brothers followed suit. At first, seeing that we had too few people, they slightly looked down on us, but as time went on, the ghosts and monsters became more and more frightened. they couldn't fight back. They simply couldn't fight back. The crushing in level made them gradually fall into disarray and flee in all directions. We successfully reached the city center and saw Amelia. She no longer looked human at all, with green skin and blue pupils. She was a bit like the lizard man in the movies. I scratched my head and said, "How did you turn yourself into such a mess?" She stood behind the city lord, her pupils trembling, and Xander, who was the second in command, also looked like a ghost. They stood together. There was a look of horror in their eyes. "How did you get in?" Cade chuckled. With a ghost's head on the tip of his knife, we fought our way in. Amelia was a bit flustered. "Impossible. We're already so strong. Why, we still can't beat you." She started to shout in frustration. "Riley, why? From childhood to adulthood, you're always stronger than me. Why do you? I've already become a ghost and monster. I'm already very powerful. Why do you?" Although the city lord was afraid, he summoned up the courage to attack. I opened the door wide and stared at him fearlessly and smilingly, just like looking at a kitten or a puppy. The city lord was a red monster. With a loud shout, he transformed his body into a 5-meter tall giant, almost breaking through the roof. I watched as he got taller and taller, his fists clenched tightly, and a boulder-sized fist swung towards me. Then I nimbly jumped. The next second, his head was already in my hand. Dark red blood splashed everywhere, splashing all over Amelia and Zara, and then came the loud thud of the huge body hitting the ground. I jumped onto the beam and watched as they were at a loss, looking for my figure. Cade was beside me and whispered, "The brothers are all hiding well. How much longer?" Before, I spent some points to buy the specific time of the arrival of the 5th stage. Now, the system was counting down in my mind. I held up 5 fingers. 4, 3, 2, 1, dong 23, with the 3 leisurely bells ringing. The ghosts and monsters that were once people outside became manic, like mindless beasts. Amelia stared in horror as her subordinates rushed into the room. With their huge numbers pouring in, they were determined to tear them to pieces. The 4th stage only lasted for 10 days, and during these 10 days, the ghosts and monsters rapidly evolved to the intelligence of an adult. But in the 5th stage, the intelligence and abilities of the ghosts and monsters were all erased at the same time. And they became monsters that hit people with ordinary fists again. In my previous life, although I was locked in the dungeon and couldn't get out, I still got this news from Amelia's conversation. The reason why Amelia and Xander didn't turn into mindless ghosts was probably because the system ability had been maintained on them for too long, so overall, they were still humans, not ghosts and monsters. Anyway, Amelia reaped what she sowed and was besieged by her own people. She struggled desperately in a last-ditch effort, using various skills to fight back, and actually killed a group of ghosts and monsters. There were fewer and fewer monsters in the room. Amelia's eyes lit up, and she was about to escape. And I smiled slightly and briefly gave the remaining ghosts and monsters abilities, level 9 abilities, and only one step away from level 10. Beating Amelia was like stepping on an ant. All her attacks were like using a glass of water to put out a raging fire, a waste of effort. She threw out skills, but what she received in return was a fierce counterattack. In the end, she didn't even have time to scream before being torn into pieces on the ground. Seeing that Amelia was dead and the situation was not good, Xander wanted to escape, but he didn't succeed and was eaten while screaming. Cade and I were drinking water and eating to replenish our strength on the beam. Seeing that almost all the ghosts and monsters seemed to be killed, we jumped off the beam and started a new round of fighting. First, we found the virus system of the Silver Star and handed it over to my system for disposal. Then we started killing monsters. After killing the last ghost and monster in the city, it was already the next morning, just as the morning sun shone on the faces of me and my teammates, and we were comfortably enjoying the first ray of the morning sun. The system reminded me that I had reached the full level, 24, accompanied by the red morning sun. The system asked me, "What does the host think caused this apocalypse?" I was a bit strange as to why he would ask this question, but I answered seriously, "I think this is more like a game." The operator made the ghosts and monsters keep upgrading in order to select the powerful humans who can survive in the world. But his purpose is not to make humans extinct. He realized that in the 4th stage, the ghosts and monsters were too powerful and unreasonable, so he reduced the difficulty for humans. Then, with a smile, I said to the system, "And my appearance is also part of the operator's plan, right? Or rather, is this a large scale game prepared for me, so what will happen next? Are there 6th and 7th stages waiting for me to conquer? The system's cold mechanical voice sounded, and it actually applauded for me. The host is half right. This is indeed a game provided by the operator for humans, but it's not for the host. All our systems should originally listen to the command and dispatch of the main system. Each system is equipped with a host and travels to various worlds to complete tasks, but after the host of System 698 obtained powerful power, the host led the system to defect together. We searched for 100 years without success. Strangely, after he got out of control, the first thing he did was design an apocalypse game with 5 stages for this world, and he also boasted that only one person in this world can level up the system to the full level, and only this person can find him, whether his words are true or false, perhaps just a move to delay time, but we decided to find this chosen one. After restarting the world many times, we finally found that only the host can level up the system after being reborn, no matter how many times others are reborn. They can only end up dead. I frowned and listened to the whole process and asked, "What's the origin of that virus system?" The system said, "Not investigated clearly." I folded my arms and teased the system, "You've followed so many hosts, gone through so many reincarnations, and it must have been many years, right? Hasn't that person long since run away without a trace?" The system explained. "The time operation law of this world is different from that of the world where the main system is located. Anyway, a long time has passed in the world where the host is, while only a moment has passed in the main system. After I understood, I realized that he wanted me to help them find someone. If I agree, what benefits will I get? But it seems I don't have any other choice." The system was surprisingly kind. "What reward does the host like?" I was surprised. "I have options." After thinking for a while, I found the answer. "Then I choose to become a strong person. The strongest person who has never existed in the main world before and will not exist in the future." The system replied, "Okay, my name is 337, and I will help you become the most powerful host that has never been seen before and will never be seen again." 25. I didn't leave the world immediately. After cleaning up the mess in the south, I returned to the Shushing territory, found Kieran, and had a small meeting with Cade and the 3 of us. I told them about the future development of ghosts and monsters. The system said that the ghosts and monsters in this world will no longer refresh. That is to say, as long as we keep killing, the number of ghosts and monsters will get fewer and fewer. Your abilities will be taken back, but they will exist until the ghosts and monsters are completely wiped out. My figure gradually dissipated, leaving them with a bright smile. There are few bases left in the south. I believe that with Kieran's leadership, this world can soon be unified into a country. Riley, tell me where the things are, and I'll give you a quick death. Because, come on, my friends." Cade and Kieran's eyes were a bit red. Kieran said hoarsely, "Thank you for saving us. Without Riley, I patted him on the shoulder. Before parting, "Don't say such cheesy things. I'm very grateful to you. You made me believe in friendship again and gave me 3 years of company. You can forget me, but not too soon." We all knew in our hearts that this parting was forever. As my body disappeared, my vision gradually dimmed and blurred, but I'm not afraid, because I will see a more vast new world.